Now more than ever, the complexity of your systems continue to grow. Costs also mount. So having the insight and being able to stitch together your technical resource and business decisions together is the prime place where observability can add value to you.
It really is more and more of a predictive game, isn't it? It's not simply detecting what's going on now.
Observability has caused organizations to have to store and aggregate a lot of data. Our vision for observability is allowing your systems to self-heal. Now, most customers are leveraging many different new technologies in the AI space, which leads to that undeterministic nature.
Okay, welcome everyone. This is our podcast, Tech Transformed, where we have a weekly conversation with thought leaders and innovators who are impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Kevin Petrie. I'm VP of Research at BARC, a global research and consulting firm, where I lead the data management practice, very focused on the intersection of all things data with all things AI. In this episode, we're going to be joined by Manesh Tailor, the EMEA Field Chief Technology Officer at New Relic. We'll be talking about artificial intelligence and observability. We'll explore how these two forces, these two megatrends, are reshaping the space of contemporary application performance, and ultimately how businesses can leverage this synergistic relationship between AI and observability to thrive and gain competitive advantage in an increasingly data-driven and impatient and real-time world. So Manesh, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Manesh, just to kick off, tell us a little bit about your role at New Relic and your background.
Sure. So I've been at New Relic for 10 years now, but I've been in the observability space for over 20 years. My career started as a developer. I worked on many algorithms like Monte Carlo simulation, Bayesian algorithms, and my background was in financial services and also for the military and the MOD in the UK. So from very early on, it was all about building high quality software. And that's where my love and fondness for observability was started. And yeah, spent the last 10 years, me and my team work with many of the large strategic customers in EMEA, helping them get the best out of the insights observability can provide for their tech and their business.
Fantastic. So 30 years, military, now private sector, a lot of high performance environments in different ways.
Exactly.
So your background will help with this next question, which is to kick things off. Let's define observability. I think it's a more recent term that's building on the notion of application performance management. But tell us, for the purposes of this conversation, how we're defining observability and how it compares with adjacent spaces of data pipeline or data quality observability.
Sure. Yep. So it's worth thinking about the move from monitoring to observability, first of all, and our definition of observability as well. Historically, monitoring was about collecting data about the things you knew about. Observability is important in an environment where you don't know all the things you need to know. There are many more unknown unknowns. And only by collecting vast amounts of information are you going to be able to then make sense of that. Our view and our value in the observability space really stems from our background in application performance monitoring, where at that edge where you're touching the customer, what's important, what's going on inside your technology, and how do you deliver on that end user experience? And then all the things that backtrack to make that deliver at the rate and the speed and performance level that you want it to operate at.
Okay, good. And so from a technical perspective, we're talking about bringing together a lot of signals from all types of pieces of infrastructure, hardware and software, logs, metrics, traces, making sense of it in order to monitor, identify issues, and optimize.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly it.
Very good. Okay. So we've seen observability evolve through three distinct phases: surfacing data, the logs, the metrics, the traces, and other inputs, connecting the dots within those inputs, extracting that signal from noise, and now what we could call intelligent observability. Can you elaborate on how you see those three phases and what specific advancements in artificial intelligence, anomaly detection, and so forth are driving the transition to observability, the next wave, 3.0, if you will?
Sure. So again, I'll refer back to monitoring just because it gives us a good baseline. We were building software that operated on architectures and technology that we built it specifically for. We knew how it was going to run, and therefore we knew what signals to look for to know it was going off course. Hey, if this happened, we want to know. It was quite simple in those days. As the way we developed applications changed, many new different teams working at different speeds, many different technical architectures, many different languages that your same system has to perform on. There were many more variables, and that became very hard for any company or any team to get a good handle on. And so observability was about bringing in lots of data and surfacing it. Now, New Relic's play on that was making it connected. And I draw the analogy of collecting data and surfacing it is like having a speed dial in your car. You can tell what speed you're currently traveling at. Very important to know that you don't break the laws and you travel at the speed you want to travel at. Making it connected in our example is, say, for example, the temperature of your car, engine speed. So you got your engine oil, you got your car speed, you got the distance you need to travel. At certain temperatures, you're going to be much more economical in where you want to get to, right? So connect the underlying data to give you a more informed decision about where you need to be operating at. But our view on observability 3.0 is like having that co-pilot in your car. So if you know where you want to get to, and you know, then the car can tell you what time you need to turn on that heat pump to get it all leveled up so that it's going to operate at the optimal speed and get you there at a certain time. It's helping you not have to use the data to make decisions, but it knows what decisions you are trying to drive towards in the end.
I like that because there are so many variables with modern business now. The move to the cloud, rather than simplifying, it simplified some aspects of IT, kind of simplified the financial aspect of it, but it also introduced a lot of new variables. And so many organizations have multi-cloud hybrid environments, and they somehow need to run business workflows across all that, which means that, like you said, you need to make a decision that's context specific about how to optimize your SLAs for a given use case in a given environment and a given set of variables, oftentimes which reside outside your own data center.
Yeah, so there's so many moving parts.
Indeed. So AI, artificial intelligence, including machine learning, Gen AI copilots, and everything in between, has this two-way relationship with observability. You can have AI, anomaly detection, predictive machine learning, and so forth that assists observability. And then you obviously need observability to optimize AI workloads on top. So with the increasing integration of Gen AI language models and AI models into applications, how does New Relic navigate that two-way relationship? How are you helping folks ensure the real-time performance and reliability of AI-driven applications, especially given the non-deterministic nature of these AI outputs? How are you using AI in both ways?
So yeah, let's start with AI for observability. We've been doing observability for many years as a company, but the industry around in the monitoring and observability space has been looking to leverage data for as long as it's been in existence. As I mentioned, my background with Monte Carlo simulation, with Bayesian networks, it was all about using data, both metric data and people's own opinions on data, to forecast what might be the end result or what was the causal relationship. New Relic has been doing that in terms of things like alerting. If you get lots of alerts coming through, New Relic will group them together and say, hey, the root cause is likely to be this thing. Alongside that, when new innovations like Gen AI came about, we were early to adopt that and try to give value to our customers. So you can go to the New Relic UI and ask it questions, whether it be about how to do a setup or what does this data mean. All along these stages where we're leveraging technology, there's a lot of learnings we make. We see how customers use our solutions like the causal analysis or the Gen AI. And we have all the challenges of trying to build solutions in this space. So when we started to leverage OpenAI, we saw our costs spike. We were trying to manage how many tokens are used. How do we get the response at the right sort of latency that is acceptable when it isn't providing an answer that the customers just put the thumbs down and say that was rubbish? So we've often taken the model that we're always customer zero. Whatever we're building, if we're building something in a new technology stack like Kubernetes, we know it has to scale for our 85,000 customers. So we took that same methodology when it comes to AI. We leverage it, we build things, and the things that we need to get the insight on, we then productize and surface. And that's where the observability for AI, what we call AIM, AI monitoring, has come from. That's its background. And so we now surface in a much more curated way the types of things you want to know about your different language models. How many tokens? What is the response time? What is the error rate? And put that alongside everything else we do in observability, and the customer gets the best of both worlds. AI for observability and observability for their AI systems that they're building.
Excellent. It really is more and more of a predictive game, isn't it? It's not simply detecting what's going on now and assessing what's going on now. It's more and more about resolving issues that are happening on a real-time basis, but then predicting outcomes and workloads, preventing bad things from happening and taking automated action to optimize performance on a lot of different levels.
Absolutely. And that's our vision for Observability 3.0. Observability has caused organizations to have to store and aggregate a lot of data. There's more systems, there's more services, there's more data in what the customers are building. And in order to get a good view, you have to collect a lot more data. But there's too many bits of that puzzle for a human to really be able to relate the causal relationships between these things. And so our vision for observability is allowing your systems to self-heal. Now, most customers are leveraging many different new technologies in the AI space, which leads to that undeterministic nature. Observability has a prime position whereby it can help you bring many of those things together. I'm not saying we can solve the trust issue, right? As well as an AI system hallucinating and asking, telling you the wrong things very confidently, you will have to trust eventually a system to be able to self-heal. And if you're doing that in a non-deterministic way, that might take some time to get to. But ultimately, monitoring observability is all about getting that, MTTR right down to zero, or ideally preventing it from, before it can occur. And that's our goal.
Mean time to resolution. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So this is good. So I'd love to understand your target user and community for this, because we're finding that in the world of AI, the top or number 2 obstacle success with AI and smart workflows is skills. And so it's from a technical perspective, making sure people have the technical chops to understand how to manage AI and so forth. But it's also from a business perspective, understand how to control the business variables. FinOps comes to mind, the need to govern cloud-related costs, because so many elements, especially cloud compute, can lead to surprising bills. You might optimize performance, but blow through the budget. So which users are you trying to make smarter, and how? To what degree do they have business expertise or technical expertise?
The beautiful thing about observability, it is applicable to every user within your organization. We definitely started in that technical space. In fact, observability was primarily seen as a value proposition for the operations team, keeping the lights on, making sure things are resilient and performant. That as teams changed in terms of the way they build software, you think the new DevOps, SRE type model, you build it, you own it, you run it. That power and data moved from operations teams to engineering teams to operate that together. Same time, your product management team and your business analysts are sitting in there thinking about how to build software that's going to service your customer in a meaningful way. So that same insight moves from ops to engineering to the business value proposition for that product. And ultimately, any company that's building any technology, you're doing it to service your customer, whether it be an internal customer or a retail customer, whatever it is. So understanding how you operate and what you deliver and the customer experience moves outside that technology user already. And then you mentioned there FinOps. There was a time where companies were willing to spend lots and lots of money and just plow money into technology because it was a race to get the best technology out, win that customer base. Today, it's highly competitive, and cloud costs, storage costs, operating costs have all gone through the roof. So there's much more appetite for optimizing what you do. We can help bridge that gap between what are you offering and what's the experience? What's the output of the application you're delivering? And how much is it costing you? How efficient is the engineering team at releasing that software for the ROI you're going to get on it? We can help you draw those balances. There are times you're going to want to invest more money and win the race. And other times you need to optimize where you're spending your money to still deliver the same result, but not consequential to a large spend. So our customer base is definitely moved from a pure technology to the product managers or product owners, to the business releasing that product, through to the financial teams that need to balance that value to cost.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got the collaboration between the technical folks like cloud ops engineers and application performance focused folks, application managers, or I should say DevOps engineers. DevOps engineers and cloud ops engineers are collaborating with business folks to make sure that they're not breaking the budget. They're optimizing performance within the constraints of certain allotted budget for cloud compute and so forth. That's great. That's an important element of collaboration. Another important element of collaboration, which is closer to home for the data people that I often work with, is figuring out how to work with data scientists, data engineers that are training these models, embedding them into workflows, and consuming all kinds of data to do it. They're training, during the training and the inference phase, there's a lot of data coordination that needs to take place. How are you helping application people collaborate with data people and data science people?
Good question. I'd answer that by suggesting an analogy here. So I'd like to draw a difference between a system of engagement versus a system of record. So system of record, which is the space you're talking about, you got data analysts working with large amounts of data. Now, typically that is what I would draw the analogy as like a lake. It's fairly well settled. It's pretty smooth. There's a lot of work going on underneath, and it can be very, very deep, but it's on the top. It's pretty plain sailing. Versus a river, which I would liken to a fast moving river, which I would liken to a system of engagement. Here, you need much more real time information to be able to pivot and change. Both types of systems are very important for the decisions you make, but the decisions you're making, they're different and at different times. So in a system of engagement, which is where observability sits for application monitoring, you are willing to sacrifice accuracy for speed, for example. You need to know lots of different information to pivot very quickly. I use an example here, working with one of our retail customers. We were on site with them on Black Friday, and they had this amazing web page, but they had this Black Friday banner, and they had this other promotion banner on the web page. And one of the business owners was in the war room on the day and said, I wonder how much money we're making from that Black Friday banner versus this other promotion. And somebody said, great question. Right. I'll get you that answer. But the answer was going to come tomorrow, because that's when they would have been able to do the analysis.
There's no Black Saturday.
Whereas in New Relic, because we're able to see what people were clicking on, it wasn't what New Relic was set up to do in that organization, but because we could see what people were clicking on and which funnel resulted in that result of a certain basket, we were able to, within minutes, pull that data, get together and provide them a real-time view of which cell was running through where more money was being made, right? So the system of engagement gives you a very different look on your data. Now, if we were to tally our numbers in real time, we may not be in line with what they would have seen as a system of record the following day. So both are linked and required, and they help each other out, because if you're not collecting the data here, your records of tomorrow would also be wrong. So they are closely collaborative and both important, but definitely not the same.
Yeah. And so that makes sense. So if you look at the system of engagement, it makes sense to calibrate, to spend money to calibrate that real-time ad on Black Friday or Cyber Monday. You don't need to do it nearly as fast or as often the other 363 days of the year, because the stakes aren't as high. So it's a wise investment on those days to have that additional analysis and consume those compute cycles. That's a great example. Okay, so looking ahead, we've got this fast pace of innovation. We have surveys that it just came back, and it showed that a third of companies already say they're in some level of production with agents, which surprised me quite a bit, because the notion of agents really only became mainstream 12 months ago. And I think part of the fact there is that agents can be a sexy way to describe more traditional software. We've been automating workloads for 30 years. But with all that said, organizations are moving ahead very quickly with agent adoption and overall AI adoption. Given that rapid pace of innovation and the increasing reliance on AI, what are the key challenges and opportunities you foresee for observability going forward? And what does that mean to New Relic's strategy and your roadmap?
When monitoring and observability products think of agents, we typically have always thought about collecting data. We think of integrations. And that has often separated good and bad and successful and unsuccessful monitoring and observability vendors. How many things can you bring in data from? That's one of the primary things that customers look for, right? If you can't observe data from 9 out of my 10 systems, you're not going to stand much of a chance in being successful for what that customer wants to use you for. But writing integrations is just something about how fast your own company can move. In a world where we're talking about agentic agents from an AI perspective, the ecosystem is growing a lot faster because of the interdependence of things collaborating together in a non-deterministic way. So this does cause some degree of concern and makes us slightly unsettled, if you like, right? Or let's say we've been thinking about how we're going to deal with this and what does it require. And so we've taken a platform approach, just like when we built the New Relic platform right from get-go. Lou's vision when he formed the company was he had the concept of an APM product, but it was very difficult to set up and for customers to get value out of at the onset. His view when he founded New Relic was one platform. You just had agents, which could be developed by New Relic. It could be developed by many other people, and created a community-based system. But the one platform that added the value was how you collect the data, how you connect the data, how you surface that data. We moved the value from collection to what you do with it. And we're taking the same approach here on the AI front. We've been working heavily in our engineering teams around building like an agentic or AI orchestrator that takes that same platform approach where you get many different abilities to plug in and for it to direct what you want to do with the different systems. And we've started to build a library of agents that operate in an agentic fashion. We've recently released solutions for GitHub Copilot, ServiceNow, Amazon Q. We're releasing one on Gemini. So very quickly, we're hoping to establish a library of integrations that are genuinely agentic in the AI space. And we hope to build that in a community-based approach. So you're not stifled. The innovation isn't stifled by just our engineering ability. So that's how I would answer the challenges as well as how we're looking at the solutions.
Okay. It is a continuous game of catch up, isn't it? This explosion of cloud endpoints led to load balancers, virtual private clouds, compute clusters, and all kinds of things that are throwing off tons of logs. So there's a mountain of noise, and you got to extract signal from that. So now that you've gotten on top of that, the next wave is this explosion on the application end of agent ecosystems. And it is hard to keep up with it all. There's the LangChain framework, but there's also MCP, the Model Context Protocol, which is just exploding on the scene now as a way to give sort of uniform APIs to connect with different types of agents and elements in agent networks, agent environments. MCP is interesting. And I don't know if this, I would think this relates to your business. So Anthropic sponsored it as an open protocol, and its arch rival OpenAI came out and said, this is great, we love it. So that might bode well for the adoption of this as a broad standard protocol. And hopefully that can help simplify to some degree the task that New Relic and New Relic users have of integrating with those huge agent ecosystems.
Yeah, we think of let's go back to observability for AI. The open telemetry space as an example is looking at ways to improve that and make that a standard. There's always going to be a race between the standards versus vendors doing their own thing because there's a demand from a customer. And so how we do it versus how something like an MCP does it, we'll see. Yeah, we'll be in a similar way, but there'll be timing challenges.
It's a fun, dynamic, interesting world we live in. So, Manesh, this has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot, and I hope our audience has as well. If you were to give a 60-second takeaway to CIOs, to IT leaders about how to navigate observability in the age of AI, what would it be?
Now more than ever, the complexity of your systems continue to grow. Costs also mount. I think in today's day and age, though, the importance of balancing that cost and being efficient is more rife than ever. And so having the insight and being able to stitch together your technical resource and business decisions together is the prime place where observability can add value to you.
Very cool. Good. Well, if you look at the areas of models, the models are really powerful. The real problem to solve is on the application side in the world of AI and stitching things together into applications and workflows. So I think New Relic is really on the cutting edge of success or enabling success or failure for AI. And so it's exciting times. I've enjoyed learning about what New Relic is doing to help.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Kevin.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I appreciate you coming on, and thank you everyone for listening. We hope you took a lot away from today's podcast. For more information about what we've talked about, you can head over to newrelic.com. We'll be back next week with another episode in our podcast series. Until then, you can subscribe to this podcast on all major platforms. You can follow the conversation on LinkedIn, on X, and you can also get great daily content at em360tech.com. Thanks again, Manesh.